option. Just give me the option. Not that I want to do that, but occasionally the option is nice.
Yeah.
We are recording and live streaming when you are ready, Mr. Chairman.
All right. All right, I have 10 o'clock. Call the meeting to order of the Isabel County Board of Commissioners Finance and Administration Committee meeting. All right, next turn to the public. I'm going to turn my chair around. And that would be a no. Okay, Nicole, do we have anybody on the virtual today?
We do not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
All right, in the interest of time, I'll move on to item number 3. Consider approving the Municipal Employees Retirement System, or MERS 457 participation agreement to permit loans and authorize the board chair to sign the same.
Excellent. So I had let you kind of indicated that this was probably coming. I had been approached by some employees very quickly after the 457 for the MERS 457, excuse me, was opened up to all employees. We've had a really good response with, I think 15 people signed up already, which is just fantastic. All told, we've got about 72, I believe, of the 225 employees roughly that belong to a 457 or engaged in a 457. I thought that was just interesting. So in a 457, remember the county makes no monetary contributions to these. It's all the employees' dollars. So to allow loans makes sense, right? It's their dollars. Plus in our other 457 plans, we allow loans. Certainly for our defined contribution plan, we allow loans. Loans are only allowed on the pre-tax portion of an employee's balance, and you can borrow a minimum of $1,000 loan or up to a $50,000 loan, but it's capped at 50% of your balance. So if a $1,000 loan is a minimum, you've got to wait till you've got $2,000 in your balance before you can take that $1,000 loan. MERS does charge interest, 2% plus prime, but the interest is actually paid by the participant back into the participant's account. So they're really not losing any money there. There's a $150 processing fee for the loans. So that's really the true cost to the employee. When you think about true cost, I do say, you're borrowing pre-tax and you're paying it back post-tax. So you are essentially losing that tax advantage too, but that's an employee's decision, right, to be able to do that. So to activate a loan provision in the MERS 457 program, we've attached that new MERS 457 participation agreement. You'll see that it's basically a restatement of the 457 plan that was first adopted February 2017. And the only change there is that loans shall be permitted. So on that participation agreement, we only fill out the parts that's changing. Impact to the county, just really limited to time and resources spent on administering payroll reductions for the loan paybacks and submitting them to MERS. So, are there any questions about?
I have a question. Yes, Mr. Chairman. So is there tax and penalties when you withdraw the loan amount or no?
No.
But it gets paid back with post-tax?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So you don't have to be 59.5 to avoid that penalty with
Correct, because
loan.
You're paying it back. That is
paying it
correct.
back.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. I do know if you left employment with us and your loan was still outstanding, there's some parameters with MERS of, they'd like that paid back immediately, but they will allow you like a quarter of a year to, I think, to pay that back. But then they do start to penalize you if you don't have it paid back. Okay.
Yeah, roughly doing the math, it looks like $3,000 this year, and a little over $3,000 to if you're borrowing against, say, you want to go out and buy a car, 20, 25 grand, $3,000 is $150 roughly in interest that you're paying back. So that's your pushback because you had to pay $150 up front, and that's a loss. So I mean, I get it. I mean, and it's an easy thing. You know, I don't know what the county's cost is, like you said, for administrative costs, but you know, it's another passive way we can help our employees, I think. So anything that we can do passively, not cost the county money, just makes perfect sense. I mean, this is a good way. I mean, 5.25%, you're paying yourself back in that in interest. So, so yeah, it's again, it takes a while to save that if you're saving and then putting more money into it. But if someone can train themselves to do that, then they can make money off themselves and adjust their budget accordingly. So it makes perfect sense. Jerry, you have any questions?
No, I've
Okay.
always thought loans on a retirement weren't a good idea, but it's up to the employees
this
to
is
make
the-
that determination.
Yeah, this is a little different too. I think this is the deferred comp is separate kind of from the retirement, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's kind of like a bonus.
Yes.
You're deferring money, you're deferring money and then you're capturing it back or you're doing it. So it's because you're only limited to so much you can put in your defined contribution, I believe, isn't it?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And then after 50, that magic age, you can do a little more catch up.
Why do you look at me? Why do you look at me like that?
No.
They're older than me. Come
No,
on.
I'm now in the
Chris-
catch up.
Chris-
I'm now in that catch up
So I'm-
group.
I celebrate my last in the 50s tomorrow. So anyway, so yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, it's good financial management, and if you can train yourself to save, there's nothing wrong with that. So you just don't want to see somebody borrow $500 off it and have to pay 150 in administrative fees. Then it doesn't make any
It
sense.
doesn't
So,
make sense.
yeah, so 3,000 I think is, I would recommend if you do anything under that, is it worth it or not doing it? But anyway, that's my
That's a great point.
So anyway, okay, Jerry, you want to do a motion for
I'll
that?
move to consider approving the municipal employees retirement system 457 participation agreement to permit loans and authorize the board chair to sign the same to the work session.
I will support that. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, the same. We will move that forward to the work session and the regular meeting. Next up, the Isabella County Board of Commissioners Resolution number 2022-01. Now, what a way to start the first board resolution this year. Okay.
So PA 152. As we all know, this act serves to limit what a public employer can pay for employee medical benefits. And under the act, the amount the county contributes is limited, and then the balance is borne on the employee cost shares. The act allows the county to adopt the state hard caps, which I've included in the packet for single, two-person, and family plans. The act allows a provision for an 80-20 split where the county would pay 80% and the employee would pay 20% of premiums. And there's also an opt-out provision in the act that, as you're well aware, Isabella County has traditionally acted to opt out and exempt itself from the act. And that allows us to set those cost share amounts at what makes sense for us and in the budget and according to our plans. In 2021, we did not adopt a resolution to opt out or exempt ourselves from the act. And as such, the act defaults Isabella County to the hard cap amounts. The hard cap amounts are a little more favorable to employees than the 80-20. I figure it's about 89-11 or 88-12, really, about 11 or 12% that it's charging the employee for those premiums. So as we discussed previously in closed session, but now with the attorney and now out, the county is subject to the hard caps, and even though the Board of Commissioners certainly did not intend for this outcome, nor did previous or current administration, the county must comply with the act. So what that means is that employee cost shares for health premiums in 2022 calendar year are going to have to increase in order for the county to be in compliance with PA 152. They'll obviously have to be adjusted upwards, and in the closed session, we did talk about the amount that would need to be increased. It's just over $81,000. There are currently 212 county employees who elect to take our health benefits. I did circle back with 44 North to check and make sure. Commissioner Horton, dental and vision are taken out of the numbers because it is just medical, but prescriptions still are included because they are, for this purpose, are considered under the medical. So we've got the purchase plans that we buy from Blue Cross Blue Shield, which include that prescription piece, plus our self-funded health reimbursement arrangement, our HRA, right, where we take that high deductible plan and self-fund it down to the deductibles that we share in the A, B, and C plans with the employees. So I just wanted to make that note because it was a little different than what we talked about Tuesday. Prescriptions are included, but we know that. So the resolution before you, there's really kind of two things. The resolutions before you to act on and consider today. On advice of the county attorney, the resolution just basically confirms that we are complying with Act 152. And the way we do that, excuse me, sorry, I'm talking a lot. The way we do that is the Act defaults us to those hard cap amounts when we do not elect to opt out. And so the county attorney has advised that we actually pass this resolution, adopt it to implement those hard caps. So that's the first thing that needs to be considered. The second thing, as we talked about Tuesday, is how to spread that cost among the employees who elected healthcare. We have to take out those individuals who opt out of our healthcare. As the law states, it's just the employees who have elected to take healthcare that we can spread the cost. But as the attorney indicated, the commissioners have the ability to spread that cost however they want to. So I told you I would bring two things to this meeting. One is the differences between the plans A, B, and C. I did email this out to you, but wanted to give you hard copies today. If anybody in the audience would like, you have some extras there. Remember, plan A, B, and C all have the same coverages, identical coverages. The only difference is the deductibles and that co-insurance, right? So just those top couple of lines, top couple of rows on that spreadsheet I just gave you. The other thing I said I would bring today is some ideas of how to spread the cost share. I have a few ideas here. I just basically put down on paper some of the ideas that were discussed Tuesday, just so you could see the numbers. Working through this exercise, I was kind of excited to do this exercise because I thought there's going to be an answer that's revealed that's going to make this, not so unpleasant. And I just basically came to realize that there's no sunshine in this, right? There's no way to slice this to make anyone happy. So these are my ideas. Obviously, at the top, you see the plan A, B, and C, number of participants in each plan, totaling the 212 employees who elect healthcare. You're seeing our current employee monthly, those are monthly cost shares. You're seeing what the new employee monthly cost shares would be under the hard caps. You're seeing the difference, and then we're annualizing that. So you see a total annual increase. And I just want to mention here for those in the audience and listening, the total annual increase, the worst case scenario is about $607 a year. So I want to make sure to get that out there, to not send anyone into a panic. We're not talking thousands of dollars, but we are talking an increase, certainly. Now, these hard caps are for calendar year, not fiscal year. So we do have, as we sit here today, if this was approved, if a spread was approved by the commissioners Tuesday, you would have 20 pays left in the year. If we wait till the April meeting, you're going to have 19 pays left in the year. And I can pull up this spreadsheet and change those pays to tell you what the resulting impact would be. But basically, at $600 a year, the most severe per pay increase is $30. Commissioner Horton, you appropriately mentioned at the last meeting that generally those are pre-tax, and so The actual hit to your take home is not going to be that $30 because it will be pre-tax, but that is a per pay amount. So you can see across the board, the total annual increases. Plan A with 177 participants is a total annual increase of almost $76,000. Plan B, increase of almost $600. That kind of tells you that Plan B is really in line with those state hard cap percentages as far as cost share. Plan C, that's our plan where employees pay nothing for the coverage. That total annual increase is just over $4,700. So that's how the numbers came to us from 44 North. Again, dental and vision are not in the new employee cost share numbers because PA 152 focuses on the medical. Dental and vision are in the current employee cost share numbers because that's what we're getting from employees, right? That's what they're paying. We could say, and it's okay that dental and vision are included in the employee cost shares because we could actually say, oh, the county's giving dental and vision for free because that doesn't have anything to do with PA 152. That sits over here. What we need to cover is the medical piece. And so as long as those new cost shares only include the medical and we give credit for the employee for the cost share they were paying, it's okay that dental and vision are included. So this is how it shakes out essentially within plans A, B, and C, single, two-person, and family. One thing we talked about at a meeting Tuesday in closed session was evenly spreading that total $81,000 among the 212 participants. That would be roughly $383 per employee who elected healthcare annually, and with the 20 remaining pays, a total per pay increase of $19.15. One commissioner did mention Tuesday that those who chose Plan C did so because there was perhaps no cost to that plan. And so if we were to take out the 10 individuals who have elected Plan C and divide that cost evenly among 202 participants, you see that total annual employee impact would be about $402 or $20.10 per the remaining 20 pays. I went beyond that to say maybe the spread, you could spread the total increase within each plan. So that 75,000 for Plan A, you could spread that among the 177 participants, and the $600 for B, you could spread that among those 25. And basically it kind of shakes out, excuse me, like the top part does, right? Total employee increase for Plan A, just over $21 per pay. Plan C, about $24 per pay, and Plan B, $1 per pay, because they're pretty much in line with the hard caps. When I got that far, I thought, what if we looked at the totals for Plan A and then divvied it up based on single, two-person, and family? I did the numbers on that, and that took me right back to the top of the page because that's what was provided to us in 44 North. So really all it gave me was a check on the numbers and the math. But that's as drilled down as you can get. My mind then went, well, what if we take all the increases for all the singles and divide it by the singles? And then I got a little nervous because then I think you're getting maybe into that civil rights area where you're saying you're single, you're a family, you're married, you're two. It just, I backed away from that thought process almost as soon as I went down that road. It didn't feel right to me. If you're looking for a recommendation from me, I would think that evenly spreading it among all those impacted makes probably the most sense. There's no answer that is happy, right? There's no way to split this that makes up for it. So I do apologize, obviously, for the oversight. And I do want to say that we do now have two processes in place One is with the budget document annually, one is with payroll. So we now have two processes that, annual processes that utilize the PA 152 resolution. So this will not be overlooked again going forward. And one thing I didn't mention in the staff report, I don't think, was that our contract language with the unions basically say that the union employee, if they elect healthcare, will pay any amount not covered by the county under compliance with PA 152. So there's no language changes that have to happen in the contracts. Which is positive. So, are there any questions for me on this?
Commissioner Jelzinski, any questions?
If we went with the breaking it out by excluding those in Plan C, that wouldn't run in violation of the act, correct?
I think that is correct. I believe that is correct. I certainly can check with our attorney on that.
Chairman Hull?
I don't have any questions. I think you've laid it out pretty well here.
I guess my, not question necessarily, but statement would be, in the Plan C, people chose that plan because of no cost to them. And there's reasons to do that. A, it could be their age that they just don't take. There's no reason to pay because they're not either using it, or B, the other reason is their spouse or significant other could have an insurance and they're taking that as a backup plan. So to charge them, I mean, I get what we're doing there, but to charge them, I think is kind of a misleading thing to do. Saying, hey, you don't got to pay now, because I could have chilled them and as far as participating in either A or B, because we're already into March. So, you know, there's a risk always. I think the big thing is hitting their deductible. So now we're asking them to pay, if I'm reading this correctly, $20, $19.15 a pay period. Is that correct? If I'm reading that correctly, which that may have put them into a I don't know what would it have been if they would have chose A or B, probably B at the beginning of the year. Would that have, did that $20, would that have, for pay period, that have put them into B if they would have chosen that? Because they could have been out of pocket already for some of their deductibles. So they're kind of taking it twice. So that's why I'm not a big proponent of charging the Plan C folks, because they didn't anticipate charges, because they could have chose something else. That's my concern, especially since we're doing it so not late in the year, but we've already missed the first quarter. People could have, again, it plays on their deductible. That's the big thing, because if you pay into Plan A, you're not really hitting your deductible. If you are, I mean, everybody has to go to their deductible, but you're not paying for that necessarily. So that's my concern. I mean, I think then too, if you take it away and go to the 202, then my next question would be, do you spread that out 75, 25, or no, 88, 85? I'm doing the math here, which I should never do. 88, 12, because that's how it breaks down. 88% of your Plan A's versus 12% of your Plan B's. I mean, that's your, the number is roughly 200. 25 out of the Plan B, it's 12.5. Do you charge that percentage and make Plan A people pay that? I don't know. I mean, again, charging somebody Plan C, if I'm reading this correctly, 1915, I don't know if that's the best thing to do. Like, it makes sense to spread it, but there's a reason why they didn't choose that. And I think there could be many more reasons than the two that I cited, but I would think if you're going to do it, you look at either, I would spread it between Plan A and B. You spread it equally then to make it $20.10. Is that my understanding?
Yes,
And if you took out Plan C, it would roughly cost them $95 more, 95 cents. I think that's the fairer way to go. That's one way. And the other option would be to split it, and where Plan A is paying more than Plan B. I mean, and I don't know how that number would break down, but I'm not a fan of Plan C folks paying, just because If we did it in January, maybe. But again, we're gonna vote on this the 16th. We're gonna miss. So if we have 20 pay periods, you've missed, like I said, a quarter of the year. So I'm not, and you're talking 10 employees, but those are still 10 employees. And I don't think that's the fair thing. We're already unfair, not unfair. It's an unfortunate situation. I mean, so I think taking Plan C folks, not including them, I think is probably the most equitable way to do it, as far as I'm concerned. But that's why we're having discussion, gentlemen. So so that's kind of how I'm leaning. I'm looking at not having the Plan C people pay and deciding whether or not how you want to split it between A and B. So
I kind of agree with Commissioner Horton, is that those people made a conscious decision. If they knew they had to pay some additional dollars, they may have gone a different option. And I know my wife and I selected the Plan A because we don't like the deductibles and, have better control. And, you make a conscious decision that, yeah, I'm willing to pay a higher premium. Bottom line is, whatever insurance we're getting is really great insurance for the employee. Again, it's unfortunate that this was missed, but you have plans and processes in place so that we don't do it again. We just have to live with this and try to do the best we can. But I think Plan C, maybe it shouldn't be included in the spread.
and also to my understanding, be careful how I couch this. My understanding in picking not the C part, but the A and B, their cost share is county decision, correct?
So
So in 2023, let's say right now, and I'm throwing numbers out, I don't even know what they are. Let's say it's $100 per pay period, $50 per pay period, okay? We ask for $20 more, roughly, per pay period. So next year, instead of 100 and then 50, we could say, well, no, I gotta be careful how I say this. If the county could go, well, instead of 100 and then moving it up, we could go, well, this year we're going to do 80 and 30 on the cost share. I think that's within the county's realm to do that.
absolutely, yep, that's
So-
because it's at budget time essentially. that
correct,
we determine this.
And I think that why we can't say that as a plan. I think that's within the county's ability to do that. Or if the cost has gone up, again, I got to be careful how I say it. If the cost we were to choose to 120 and 70, you could put it back down to 150 because it's the county's decision how they want to spend their money. As long as you follow and you opt out totally.
Absolutely.
So,
Yes. We can't do anything like that to circumvent.
We are not,
PA
and that is,
152,
I
but
would
we certainly
never,
can
ever,
set
I would
those.
never propose a circumvention of the rules. Never propose not following the rules completely. That would, I would never recommend that doing that. But I would think, again, my feeling is Plan C, I would not include them in this. And as Commissioner Jelzinski so eloquently stated, this, and someone that is involved in the self-employment world, it's a heck of a benefit. And it's just, and I think that's the way to go. I think that if, it's unfortunate, but the county recognizes the unfortunate, as we stated here, that we are displeased by the impact. It's right in our resolution. I didn't make that up. It actually says the word
Does say
displeased.
that.
And so, yeah, that's how I would go. I mean, gentlemen, think about how you want to do this, but it's going to go in front of the full board, obviously. But
Right.
I am not a fan of charging it to Plan C, folks, just because where we're at in the year.
That makes sense to me. I mean, those folks chose Plan C because there was no cost share. And it's only 10 people, so it makes a difference of 95 cents per pay. I do think kind of a off note, but kind of related. We're going to have to make employees pay more for their benefits for this plan year. I think that we've been modeling, we saw the 3-year projection in the last meeting. And I think when people see that we're modeling a 1% cost increase for employees, I don't know if that's realistic. I think if we're going to use that figure, I think we need to look at how we're going to get there. There's going to be a little attrition, maybe a position here and there that we can't fill, but I don't think we're going to make up that much difference. And if the benefit costs stay flat, I think we're very, very fortunate. They seldom are flat. And then I think you have to consider the rate of inflation right now, and modeling a 1% payroll increase, I don't think is realistic. I think we need to take a harder look at that in our projections. So,
And isn't the 1% also applied to overall county inflationary increases for across the board for any services, and which
That was the.
you got to
budget.
expect those are going to go up.
I would just think what the county's paying in gas. Right?
Yes.
Oh.
That was
Yeah, it's a
quite
little-
conversation.
That's a little culture
Yeah.
shock. What? It's 150, 400 bucks to fill up my truck now? Is it 101? What the heck's going on?
Yes, And we.
And that's
we
after-tax
gas
dollars.
up a 24/7 patrol.
Yeah, and that's an
right?
after-tax dollar hit too. I mean, so again, it's just, yeah. So what do we want? What does this committee, do they want to make a decision, a recommendation to the board? Let the board discuss it. I would be comfortable in making the recommendation to the board as far as coming out of committee, getting rid of Plan C copays and sticking to the 202 participants, and then a total pay of $20.10 additional.
Is that a motion?
That would be any further. I would make a motion then that, well, how would I do that? Because our motion, this is going in front of the board.
That's just the resolution. Yeah.
That's just the resolution.
You can make another motion regarding the spread, and then we'll have that motion on the full board agenda.
All right, first, I'll make the motion that we consider adopting the County Board of Commissioners Resolution number 2022-01 and adopt the hard cap annual cost limitations for the medical benefit plan coverage year, January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022, and authorize the board chair to sign the same.
I will second that motion.
Any further discussion?
I'm in favor of that. I think we have consensus here, so I don't
Let's
see
just
any
go,
reason
yeah,
not to
yeah,
move forward.
yeah, this is the resolution. Now, next one, I'm going to bring another motion that we can have that discussion. All right, so this, just on the resolution, any further discussion?
Oh.
Hearing and seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Next up, it will be, now I would like to make a motion that, in addition to the resolution, I would like to make a motion that we bring to the board for discussion, and have the board chair sign the same, that the cost per of the remaining pays in 2022, if it is 20, or just that thereof, that it be divided among 202 participants, not the 10 participants in the Plan C, for a total pay of $20.10.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that?
I'm in favor of that, as I stated during the last motion.
Well, I said, listen to Nicole too. Nicole, I heard Nicole's. So I think it's fair. None of it's trying. I think it's the fairest way to go as far as we have to do it. So, all right. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, the same. Okay, that would be the next thing going forward. Okay. Next up, fiscal year 2021 draft audit discussion. We're moving along pretty good. This was slow. We got a lot more. You got a lot more notes. You summed up like that much paperwork in just that sheet right there. No, this sheet right here, sorry. So
Yes,
these two
yes.
sheets, so.
I apologize for not
Yeah,
having
and
that.
thank you for doing that. I mean, I think that I'm gonna stop real quick. I think giving these to the commissioners, letting them know. I know we did add something to our stuff here, but again, we're coming out of this board with a transparent feel like we did last time in discussions and discussing some things. I think that's the best way to go. So let the board be more involved totally. Because this affects all board members because they're constituents and that's not constituents here, but the employees
Yes.
who are constituents.
I will
too.
email both of those things out to the full board.
Now, and again, I don't mean to background and keep going back. What did this before we came to the meeting, did any employees notice of what we're going to be discussing here today?
No.
Okay. All
No,
right.
the only employees would have been those that were in the
Gotcha.
closed session,
Why don't- then let's-
or certainly in discussion with payroll.
Let's-
benefits administrator.
I would think, like, maybe I should have brought this up, but I can leave it too. No, I just can't. Would this board would this committee be in favor of having the administrator controller notify the employees that this is going to be on the resolution and the committee's recommendation? So that way, if they have any questions or want to make comments, they can, so they're not taken totally aback by this.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Absolutely.
Excellent idea.
So, okay, sorry, I didn't mean to back up there, but
No,
that's why we have
great
committees,
point.
because sometimes
That's right.
the blither is disease from the brain to the mouth out. So I try to stop most of it, but sometimes it just comes out. So, okay, now we'll move on to the draft audit discussion.
Okay, so I'll have a copy as you have asked in the past. Obviously, finance is receiving the draft copy before it's presented to the full board on the Ides of March, wouldn't you know? Mr. Doug Dieter, principal with Raymond CPA, will be here to present the audit. So, as you're all very aware, because of our population of over 4,000, state of Michigan requires an annual review of the financial statements of the county. That report is due to the state within 6 months after our fiscal year. So we're always trying to get that to them. Everything comes down to that March 31 deadline. So you had received, I believe, not only a draft of the financial statements, but also the single audit, and you would have also received a board communication letter from Raymond. All of those documents were received by Administrator Controller's office roughly mid to late February, and certainly Accountant Melissa Franquist has been up and down and through and around every page of that draft. Administration has provided a review of the documents and met with Treasurer Pickens and Chief Deputy Stephanie Schaefer to talk about things that in the draft, things that we wanted to see either wording improved or changed to reflect what actually happened. We didn't, in that review, we really didn't see any numbers that needed to be changed, mostly just language type stuff. And some of those things I'll talk about later on. But I think the draft that they received in their packets, Melissa, I know we had a last minute change with single audit numbers, but the draft they received is still in its final form and what they'll see presented next Tuesday. Excellent. That is good to know. So there still maybe minor changes, but we really don't anticipate anything to be material, certainly at this point. So as Steve Krinovic mentioned, the big thing is always where did we end in fund balance? If you've brought your document, page 30 of the audit draft does display, and I need to stop looking at my draft and the real thing probably. Does show, you'll see assets, liabilities, and then towards the bottom of the page on the left, the fund balances. Total fund balance, and this number shouldn't surprise you because a couple of weeks ago at the forecast meeting, we kind of knew what was happening with fund balance in the financials, and total fund balance is at just over 11.6 million. This is actually because in the final amended budget of fiscal 21, we had budgeted to actually add fund balance, and that was because of the bond anticipation note repayment, I believe, for the most part. But instead, we actually added just over 2.6 million. So in addition to the ban reimbursement to general fund that covered prior year expenditures on the Isabella County Sheriff's Office and Correctional Facility project, we also had quite an influx of American Rescue Plan funds that we budgeted and used in fiscal 21 to cover that public safety payroll. So in addition of 30% addition to fund balance, but again, those are one-time things, right? One-time things. So nice for the plan, but overall, if you will look at, I want to look at page 34 and 35, which is going to be a little tough because they're printed front to back here. This is where it shows our budget to actual. So you can see revenues performing very strong over budgeted amounts. Again, at the top of page 34, right hand side, you'll see the actuals. And all of those expenditures, if you look through page 34 and page 35, all of those expenditures are in parentheses, all under budget. And that's where you see at the bottom of page 35, where we had the final budget change in fund balance. We had budgeted to add just over $1 million, but actually we added over 2.6. The original budget, as you recall, we were going to use about 310,000 in fund balance. And then as the year went on and we got the bond anticipation note, you remember doing that budget amendment to bring those monies in to cover, and that's where we ended. So let's dive into fund balance. You remember me talking, this is going to be on page 88. You remember me talking I think it was maybe at my last administrator controller's report about wanting to assign fund balance amounts. And page 88 does go through the fund balances for not only the general fund, but other funds. You'll see at the top on the left, there's non-spendable amounts. That's like anything we've already prepaid or inventories that's not spendable. That advance to component unit of 150,000 is the revolving drain account. We don't have any restricted funds in general fund. In the general fund, those restrictions would be put on by like outside third parties, and we have no committed funds. Remember, this board can commit funds. And when you commit fund balance as a board of commissioners, the only thing that can undo that really is the board of commissioners. Now, the assigned fund balance category, in your fund balance policy, you have delegated the authority to assign fund balance to your administrator controller. And this is what she has done. Assignment of almost 2.4 million for the bond anticipation note payment. If you look on the same page 88 and you see a couple of columns over where it's the jail construction capital projects fund, you'll see that that still has a restricted balance of 3.6 million. That's the cash as of September 30 that we still had in that jail construction fund. That's what we hadn't spent. And so I'm taking the balance of that cash that we had, the balance of what we've already spent, so the 3.6, I'm gonna assign that 2.4 roughly to come up with that total $6 million that's gonna need to be paid back. That is only if the correctional facility main project bond is not issued by, I think it's July 15th of 2024. We need to pay that back within 3 years of receiving the money or when the project bond is issued, whichever comes first. So I'm just saying at this point, since we don't have the project bond issued, we would be forced to pay back the bond anticipation note out of general fund if we didn't let that big project. Sent a question.
So the.
It's coming. I sent
You
a
can see
question
that,
for me.
huh?
I could.
So the project bond would pay back the bond anticipation note.
Yes, of the current project budget of the original $41.5 million, this $6 million sits within that 31 or 41.5 million.
Okay.
It's always been the intention in the process
That's right.
that when that large bond is issued, first thing is it pays off the 6 million. So I just wanted to tie that together for you, so to show you why it's set at that 2.4. Working capital, I kept at the assignment of 2 million. It's been that for quite some time. Vested benefits, we did talk about that in my report, I think a little bit. In the last several budgets or audits, I think 10, 15 years, it's been like 554,000. But what I wanted to do was to tie that number to what our actual vested benefits or compensated absences are if we closed the door, which is, I understand, ludicrous, but at the same time, you know the number. On page 73 of the audit document, under section 9 called long-term debt, compensated absences are figured for the September 30 date. And when you see about the middle of the page, that long-term debt under governmental activities, we've got that bond anticipation note liability in there. We've got some post-closure landfill costs, and we've got these compensated absences. So the ending balance is that $1,243,010. That's the amount that I'm assigning a fund balance for those. If we know the amount, then that should be the amount that's assigned. The district health, central dispatch health, or capital, the district health capital and central dispatch capital, those are set aside amounts based on the leases that they've expired, but actually still in place and we're still working under. So that's a requirement of those. Claims liability is an amount that comes to us from MMRMA based on the outstanding cases and claims that we have with them. Court technology, that's that piece of court fines that is captured, if you will, and put into this fund for court technology needs. I know a couple years ago, they used this when they did the BIS audio upgrades over there for court recording. So that builds as a fund should, right? Monies go in there and they build until they can afford the expense. Subsequent year expenditures, I might have to look to an accountant or a CPA for that, but that's something that they make us, they just assign a portion. It's a function of this process. They assign that portion of fund balance based on the prior year, upcoming
So
year.
your 2022 budget, I don't know the numbers, but let's say you budgeted revenues at 19 million, but you budgeted expenditures at 19,310,000. So basically you're saying in subsequent years, we're going to use 300,000 of that fund balance. We're going to take in 19, but we're going to spend 19.3. So the difference between those two is in the future, we're going to spend that 300. We're anticipating on the budget to spend that 300,000, and that's what that 300,000. So
That makes more sense. Thank you. That makes a lot more sense.
2022 number, if you look back at our forecast, that's the number we show on there, and show your budget too, but that's that 310, 597, that's your number that you expect to spend on 20.
Yeah, let me ask you, if we had anticipated an addition to fund balance, would that,
It's just
zero?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Oh,
only a negative. It's never a positive.
okay.
You know, it's just like an audit comments. You don't hear any good things. You always hear about that. So
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
but yeah, that's
Yes. Well, that's a pretty good intro, actually, to what we're gonna talk about next. There was a finding and noted in the single audit. So not a material weakness, but what they consider a significant deficiency. So we will get, quote unquote, written up for this. Okay? And Mr. Dieter will explain this next Tuesday, but the deficiency was in regards to internal controls over financial reporting, and they were in material amounts, so they were large amounts. In terms of the general fund, the auditors found our assets were understated by $887,918. This is because the 911 Motorola server project. Remember, that's where MMRMA covered that expense for us. It was a lightning strike of our central dispatch, and it took out a major piece, obviously, the consoles, a major piece of equipment for central dispatch. At the time, Director Griffiths, of course, did a fantastic job of identifying everything that had been impacted by the strike. He did a great job of getting estimates. He did a great job of forwarding those estimates. We forwarded them on to the insurance company. When it came time to that $1 million piece of equipment, of course, MMRMA, our property and liability insurance carrier, wanted to take a deeper look at that. And administration was negotiating with MMRMA on were they going to cover this or not. The equipment that had failed in the lightning strike was no longer available. And really the equipment that was available to be put in would be considered quite an upgrade, right? It's like, I don't know, Windows 2.0 versus Windows 10. I don't even know if there was a Windows 2.0, but you understand. And so insurance company wants to replace with like, they don't want to replace with an upgrade, right? They want to replace the same. But since that wasn't available, that took quite a negotiation, I believe, with administration and MMRMA. So finally, it came down to MMRMA would cover it, and administration asked MMRMA. I think the choice was given, and administration asked MMRMA to cover those bills rather than us pay and the insurance reimburse. The invoice for Motorola, to the tune of over $887,000, was paid directly by MMRMA. So when that happens, none of those invoices hit our AP system. These accountants who do a fantastic job of watching for invoices like that had no trigger that this equipment was going to be an asset to us. Part of the reason why they're involved in these meetings now, part of the reason why just overall communications have improved, I think. So without that knowledge of the asset being replaced, the asset was not put on what's called our construction in process additions for the year that we would turn over to the auditors. And certainly in that amount, it's material enough that they have to mention it. Additionally, we had the same issue in the drains unit for the construction and process on some of the drains. The work was invoiced after the fiscal year. It was appropriately booked back, but it wasn't really communicated that was construction and process in progress. It wasn't added to the additions given to the auditor. So again, nothing malicious, nothing, no mishandling of funds. Everybody gets nervous when they see a finding. This finding does not impact our financial standing or our bond rating. It's an opportunity, of course, for us to put some more of those processes in place to make sure that it doesn't happen in the future. And in the audit, you'll see a corrective action plan in the transmittal letter, actually, that talks about administration putting in a plan in place to identify all of those, any capital improvements that might be in process or in place in that current year prior to any audit field work being done. That's, how the auditors found it. Basically they go through your board minutes, right? And so they see that agreement with Motorola. They know there's a pending asset. Where is it on your books? And so that's how it came to light. I think there was a similar situation in the audit last year in regards to the correctional facility project. We had not booked that as construction in process. And I believe that there was, rather than a finding, it was communication with administration. And unfortunately, no opportunity to put a process in place to make sure it didn't happen again. So at least I know we're going to improve going forward in this regard. I think that is the gist of it. Obviously, you can choose not to approve your audit next Tuesday, but it would mean lots of negative things for the county in terms of meeting reporting deadlines or qualifying. Lots of things, annual disclosure, qualifying statements. We need this audit to be adopted prior to the end of March. So are there any questions about audit numbers, my staff report, finding?
Commissioner Dawson?
Well, as you know, I did a kind of a thorough presentation to Treasury, and I shared that with auditors, asking for a review of my concerns. And in that it wasn't addressed in the audit, I'm thinking the auditors must have decided that my concerns are not valid, but I never received a word back. So I will have some questions for Mr. Dieter. I was hoping he'd be here today, but I will have a number of questions for him at the work session, because I think, they're not frivolous questions. If we're not following the state's Uniform and Budgeting Act, then maybe we need to improve our processes. And I see they're citing other things that are requirements of Treasury, but there was no reference to anything that I said. I mean, if they had come back and even contacted me personally and said, well, this, we looked at your concerns and they don't impact any of the Treasury Acts or Michigan Acts because of A, B, and C, I'd have felt some comfort in that my concerns were never addressed. I will bring that up with a number of questions in the work session.
That's very appropriate. I have reached out to Mr. Dieter to say, hey, I know that letter was sent. I know you had a meeting with the auditors, and shouldn't we mention something about that? I know it wasn't in this document, but I know that it will be discussed next Tuesday.
I will say, since you stepping in the role, I know you haven't been in very long. I do appreciate the fact that you are internally making some changes as we move forward. And I find that refreshing. So
thank you, sir. I haven't been refreshed yet myself, but I'm looking forward to it.
Chairman Hope?
I agree, Commissioner Jelzinski. That would be the time and place to bring those questions up. So
I guess I have a question not necessarily in this audit, but how, getting back to page, I wrote it down, let me make sure I say the page, make sure I'm correct. Page 88. We've talked about this. I think we set this out in stone several years ago. Non-spendable, restricted, committed, assigned, and unassigned fund balance designations. I know this is only talking about this year, but I believe in our forecast, we talked about using fund balance to pay as part of our budgetary process. I think in next few years, we're going to be pulling fund balances. And you had mentioned how things get put into those categories. Do we as a board look at doing committed fund balances now? Since we already know we're going to be using those in the future, do we go put them into maybe the lesser of the assigned fund balances? Where should administration make the recommendation to the board what to put those in, since we've already got a document out there showing that we're going to be using these fund balances? Do we make the commitment now as this board this year? In future years, should it be an ongoing thing every year? I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it should be an ongoing thing, because I know, as we talked about, and you like to say, the budget is a fluid document, right? And we talked about, you know, this 2.4 million assigned for bond anticipation, note,
Mhm.
that's gonna drop off in a couple of years, right?
Mhm.
We won't have to assign it or even commit it or restrict it for
Mhm.
that because it'll be paid back at
Mhm.
a point certain, either through the fund balance or the new bond. So I think it's fluid enough that it's worth a look at every year. I know when I handled the budget process for fiscal 21 in 2020, I think that's right. I did encourage and request and ask that the commission commit some of those turbine dollars. We didn't go that route, but I would say these assigned numbers, it's my understanding throughout the year, I can unassign them at will, basically. You know, I'll document it somehow. Really, the only place this is documented is that audit document once a year.
Yeah.
But if the board were to commit funds, that obviously that would take board action. There would be board minutes, and that's in stone. I can't undo that. And so if it's the board's desire to have funds truly committed that the administrator controller can't uncommit, it would take another board action to uncommit those. Then, you know, I certainly would make a recommendation to you on that.
My
Does that
only,
answer
my,
your question?
well, yeah, my thought is if you're looking at an unassigned fund balance this year of $5,288,000. Okay. And we know in the future, we're going to be pulling, I'm throwing this out, 4 million. Okay. That's misleading, not misleading, that's not a good term, that's a bad statement. By me. It would be more accurate, perhaps, is that you would put the fund balance out of the unassigned, since you know, again, we're taking this, we're committing to a $35 million borrow, or $27 million borrow, sorry, I misspoke, a $27 million borrow. You're committing to that. So it should not be sitting in an unassigned fund balance if you're committing with a plan to spend your fund balance. I think it should minimally go into the assigned part where you could pull it and do stuff. Maximally, put it to the maximally. Put it to the committed side from the board action, which means the board has to do it. I would think we would take it out of the unassigned part and put it into the assigned part, whether you do it in this year's budget coming up, okay, or in next year's or the 2024 ballot. But if your plan is to use them by showing an unassigned and not showing it there, I think is not being as transparent as we should be.
And you're talking about the debt payment.
The debt payment, well, that, yeah, because
there would be no payment in 23. I think interest only in 24. Is that correct? And then the full principal and interest in 25. So you bet in next year's audit. Do I have that right?
I would think that you want to, I would think that you would put,
assignment for
once you take the blue pen, that's black pen here, but once you take that blue pen and sign that, when he takes his blue pen and signs that bond, okay, that I think is when that assignment has got to be put somewhere else. Because you committed to pay for that. And part of your payment plan is using your fund balance. So that's how I would see, and again, it's going to make it look kind of ugly, kind of scary. But if you put it into a sign and you know that, okay, that we're just doing it correctly. I don't know, maybe.
And we talked through that.
Look at all this is the accounting people back here. People on that don't see that, but I got 5 people giving me that, not staring at me because and that's why
Y'all come sit at the dais.
that's why I like sitting here, because I don't have to look at them because I know what they're thinking. But
I think Steve might have something to add.
yeah, he's going to.
I would agree with you. I think it is after you sign the bond, because right now, as of September 30, 2021, you don't have any legal commitment. You know, we forecasted out that number of what we expected and so forth. We don't have any legal commitment on that. So I would not see it in this audit, which I think is perfect. But I think in 2022, because you'll hopefully have the bonds issued and we'll know what that number is, probably this 23 million or 2,392,000 will fall off. But then you could do an assignment or a commitment or whatever of that number that we, at least at the time, forecasted to expend. So, you know, as you mentioned, determine that $4 million, let's say if that's what that number is, 2.3 million will fall off, but we'll bring on that 4 million and basically, like I said, be a little more transparent with the numbers. I would think that's a great idea.
Mhm. And we did have the discussion about maybe assigning that bond payment in this. It was, but with the bond anticipation note still in there. it didn't
Well,
make sense.
as we're working through this, again, that's why you bring these out,
Mhm.
is that I know when you're, after a certain amount, we start putting back. So again, it's where's your comfort level and what numbers you want to work with?
Mhm.
Because you want to work with it all up front, and then, or you want to kind of blend it, or, and Jerry, you had a question.
Yeah, and I know we have unionized employees and we've been taken to finding arbitration in the past. They look at unassigned funds or they look at assigned funds being available to argue that we can afford to pay more for payroll. And
Generally they look at the unassigned. And so
Unassigned.
that's why it's even, more important if we know these dollars need to be assigned or committed to a purpose, then you do it in this document. I know it's nice to say, oh, we have a whatever percent fund balance, but if it's truly meant for other things, then you do need to get that as
you want to present
unassigned.
an argument that we're more well off than we are. Right.
Right, because that sends a message that we can afford things that maybe we can't.
Chairperson, hope you have anything.
And it's money that we're dedicating to that, although it might not be officially assigned.
By all the power invested in me, it is, sir.
Right.
Well, yeah, and again, I like I said, I'm comfortable. It's like be my decision, but as a board, I would be more comfortable probably having it into an assigned category. Just that way, you would, the administrator controller would have more leeway, I guess. I mean, how much does it come in front of the board and make a resolution, take it out of the commitment? I guess it
Right.
just depends on the
Right.
board how far they want to go with it. So again, that's for another discussion for another day.
I hope
So,
at budget time, if I recommend you commit it, that you follow that recommendation.
no, that would be, again, as Commissioner Jelezinski has stated, it's just the way you're forecasting. And you never know. Who thought you'd get, you had mentioned before, we could get not 1 point, I won't speak, but you could get money to pay towards the MERS. I mean, then where's that go? Then that's gonna probably go back into unassigned or.
Well, that just leaves us and goes to MERS, but.
No, yeah, but exactly, but you budgeted paying that.
Yes.
So, it's all part of that overall forecasting plan to pay for our $27 million.
$35 million.
No, but we're borrowing 28 or 27. Somewhere in there.
That's the plan
Yeah.
right now, yeah.
So, like I said, that's the big expense. Okay. Anything else for the administrator controller on the audit?
We already have a motion on the floor.
No,
that's a
I think
discussion.
that was just her
Discussion.
question. We were
Never
just
mind.
questioning, so sorry. Now we'll take a motion up for.
We don't need it, right, for discussion.
Oh, we just had discussion.
Not.
Oh, fiscal discussion. All right, there we go. No further discussion then. Okay. Next up, the invoice list discussion.
There's somewhere.
By the way, I want to comment. It's nice to see all you guys here. Before, when we were zooming, I could see like telephone numbers and stuff like that. Everyone here. So. All right. Invoice list, commissioners. I freaked out. Not freaked out. That's not a good term, Jim. I'm just spitting stuff out today. When I saw $201,000 to a payment to an attorney, but then I realized that it was nothing like that at all. It was the clerk passing on funds. So
That was an outside.
yeah,
We took the money
like a
in
settlement.
trust and
like I
sending it
said,
out.
yeah.
Okay.
I think what the, I blew someone's budget, that's for sure. So anyway, county spends enough in attorney. I mean, as far as court costs and everything speaking about invoices, we kind of had that discussion earlier. I brought up where with this recent impact on the cost of fuel. Where are we projecting our, because it's, we see it sometimes, it doesn't affect us for the road commission because they're a separate entity, but you hear the prices of salt, they can't afford salt. But we are in a real situation where not too long ago, a year ago, it was 2.85 a gallon for gas. Now we're hitting 4.15 and probably going to go up. I don't want to say up and away.
I was in St. Louis, Elma. It was 4.98 yesterday.
4.98. Oh, that's high.
I'm 46.
Wow, that was very high. I think I've seen it like 4.08 or 4.15 or something like that. But I mean, that's got to play a part in some of our budgetary hits. And as Chairman Hope was saying, on the 1%, we're blending all that numbers in. But I know it's just I like to, if we could just see a number out there. Maybe don't spend a lot of time doing it.
Sure. No, I can pull that together. I know that sheriff, of course, has the largest fuel budget of any of our departments. And he was just this morning before Criminal Justice Committee was concerned about where this is going to go. He's about half spent right now. Good job budgeting, right? However, we didn't anticipate the increase. So, certainly gas prices should not dictate public safety response. And we're going to have to.
You're going to have to adjust that then, because
yeah,
you can't sit there and say, we can't come out because we don't have gas.
Right, exactly.
I mean, or I shouldn't say it like this, but do we, again, that's the sheriff's responsibility, but does he start looking into EVs? I mean, does he, where is that?
That was actually brought up this morning.
Or is EV technology out there today that can go 0 to whatever real fast and back and not have to go down the road and zip down the road and have to stop somewhere and charge up again? I don't know. I will mention on the way, I'm just commenting, it's probably me just to shut my mouth, but going Sunday when it was really windy, I was driving down river coming back, going through not Wademan, but Lake Isabella, then take the river shot, and you see a bunch of turbines. 0 blades were moving. Now, again, is it the direction of
Was
the
it
wind?
windy?
It was very windy.
Okay.
So
That was the first question.
yeah, it was. I mean, that was when the winds were blowing at 30 sustained at times.
Maybe where they were blowing too
That's what the different
much
directions.
because
yeah.
they will
Shut down.
break them.
They all
Yeah,
shut down.
Not break them. They will set the brake on them if the winds are too high.
Yeah, they were 0 moving.
They do the same thing in a coal-fired plant. If they're exceeding what they need, they'll shut it down. You don't see that because it's inside a building. The turbines you see when they're driving by. And so
Yeah, I just found
I
that
had people ask me that before. Why aren't they turning? We're supposed to be making electricity.
either
out
that or
of
the
this."
wind's blowing in the opposite direction that they're going, and it would be too futile for them to do it.
No, they'll turn and pitch them into the wind. It doesn't matter which way the wind's blowing. They will rotate and they will
I
pitch.
just found that again. It's one of these things where I didn't know the answer to that. I guess I could look it up on Google. But
Chairman Hope
I
is
think-
right. They limit the amount of electricity that can go on the grid.
I think, when you have to be totally efficient with coal or natural gas, they have to operate at a certain operating performance level. And if they don't have the demand, there's no way to store that energy, so they just shut it down. They don't have to pay the lease fees as quite as much, and so it all comes into play.
Going back to EVs, I just read that Ann Arbor, the city bought some EVs for their public safety and are using them. So I don't know. My brother has one. He leases it. It'll go 250 miles on a charge. So it's a Chevy Bolt, I think. And it's crazy fast. They're really fast.
You ever see the patrol cars running constantly because they've got so much electronics on board? They
Yeah.
can't shut it down, and
Yeah.
so EVs may have some limitations for patrol cars.
All right, anything on the invoice list, gentlemen? I know I started it out, took us totally down a different tangent.
The less
Yeah.
scary thing is
Also-
just let your eye go right down to the general fund portion then, and that's always less scary.
Right. No, exactly. So I didn't see really anything. That next call to public. Any public want to speak?
Oh, great question. No, we hadn't. I just took the 6 million, figured the cash we had, but you're right, because there certainly is, it's under 1%, but to your point, there was interest on it, so there is not interest in it. Yeah, it was a couple $100,000.
It's $237,000 at the end, but probably portion.
Exactly. If it's paid off sooner, it wouldn't be that whole 200. Yeah. Thank you for that. That's a good reminder.
Okay, anybody else? That was for the audience who didn't hear that was Treasurer Pickens. He was, no, that's perfectly fine. No, I should have invited you up. I'm sorry. You want to come up here and say that? No? No, there we go. He was mentioning at the end, we were talking about the bond anticipation note and everything, and he had mentioned in regards to the interest that was that's on the total interest on that note, if it was paid off. If it was not paid off until the final installment, that would be $237,000. Paying it off early would result in possibly reducing that 237 to a lower amount. So that was good catch, Steve. Anybody else? Nicole, anybody on the virtual with their hand raised?
There is not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioners, anything else? All right, I have nothing else. I will call the meeting at 11:16. Oh, clips here. I kind of like it. I can take these back to my office. I can.